This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, I have a wonderful guest on the phone with me. In fact, special thanks to Marcia McBroom of Beyond the Valley of the Dolls for sending this lovely lady my way. We have the awesomely talented sister, Lorelei
Lorelei.
McBride. I knew a Lorelei. I knew a Lorelei growing up.
It's okay. It's Lorelei McBroom.
Lorelei McBroom. Okay. And you got
Marcia McBroom, Lorelei McBroom, Dana McBroom, Durga McBroom. All the McBroom sisters, with the exception of our baby sister, are in the entertainment industry.
The baby sister couldn't keep up with you guys?
No, she was doing quite well. She's very pretty, and she has a look kind of like Alicia Keys when she was younger.
Okay.
And she just didn't like what the business was about.
You know what? I
could
see that. Yes, I could see that. The business definitely has a corrupt side. And I've seen that through some of my guests. I've seen it all through the media. So, yeah, this whole flashbulb and red carpets, I think, is a put-on, very phony lifestyle that we're supposed to see. But in reality, that's not what it's all about.
Well, the thing of it is that there are people who are attracted to the business because they really need that adulation from the public because they're deeply insecure.
Mm-hmm.
And those people can be very troubled. You see a lot of people that have drug and alcohol problems because of the pressure of the industry, the pressure of being in the public eye, the pressure of being judged is really what it's about. And based on how you're judged, it can make or break you in a way that's not quite the same pressure in the regular world. So it's not for everyone. You have to have a tough hide. You have to be able to accept rejection as well as being admired. And the hardest thing is when the people get really successful, they tend to have people around them that are afraid to be honest.
Yep.
And that can cause serious problems.
Yeah, that can. And I'm going to tell you, I've gotten to the point now, I don't even read the tabloids because half the stuff you read is a bunch of bull,
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeepers. I mean, I'm a big Emma Stone fan. So the other day there was this thing that said that right now they want to talk about this relationship that she's supposedly has. I don't know if she's got it. And now they're saying, oh, she's pregnant. And then they went on to say, nope, that was false. And I'm like, tell the friggin' truth,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, sometimes people will use that opportunity for their own celebrity. I remember distinctly when I was on tour with the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger took us to a nightclub, a bunch of the people in the band, and he met a woman there. And they were dancing and carrying on. And the next thing we know, there's this huge expose, My Night with Mick Jagger. And it was a big scandal at the time. It was like in the tabloids. And ultimately, it hurt him. But, it made her more well-known. It was Carla Bruni.
Oh.
She ended up marrying Macron, So there are people that will take advantage of a celebrity's visibility for their own 15 minutes of fame, and that's an unfortunate thing.
One of the worst I heard lately is Jennifer Lawrence, who I used to admire until recently. Now she says she won't take selfies with fans because she doesn't know who they are, even though this 20 or 25 million or whatever it is a movie she gets comes from her fans, but nonetheless.
Yeah.
Now you'll see pictures of her on the red carpet peeking around fellow celebrities. And I'm like, oh, that's right. You're in the A group. You're better than us. I think I'd like to spit in her face for that.
I know. That is an issue. I've seen it both ways. again, with the Rolling Stones, they had to have a Mick Jagger lookalike because there were so many fans. They'd find out what hotel we were staying in, and that person would go out the front so that Mick could go out the back. So it's got its up and down sides. I'll say that.
You know what that puts me in mind of? You ever see that movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield?
No, no, I didn't see that.
Oh, it came out in 1986, and it had Rodney, of course, go back to school because he wants to, encourage his son and whatnot. So actually, it's college, but nonetheless, there's all kinds of people there to get books and whatnot. So his driver slash bodyguard asked if he wants him to move some people. He said, no, 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 we're in college. I have a better idea. So next thing you know, you got, because Rodney's character is a successful business person, so driver drives him around in a limousine. So suddenly there's a big commotion and everybody's going outside, and there you got Burt Young, who's playing the limo driver, holding a sign up that says Bruce Springsteen. and they managed to empty the place out so they could go. They didn't have to wait in line to get their books.
Right.
I thought that was funny. But yeah,
Well,
I
it's
don't.
definitely an upside to having visibility and fame. It's just a question of if the person has the stability and a plan and kind of a fortification around them. And that's one thing that's been really interesting for me with my sisters being in the business, because they certainly inspired me. Marcia is the oldest, and I always admire and still do admired her style. She's very classy and yet ethnic, and exposed all of us to her travels. Dana is also extremely talented, and she introduced me to Nile Rodgers, who used to be a neighbor of theirs. And at the time when I met Nile, it was right around the time when he had done David Bowie's Let's Dance.
Okay.
And he kind of took me under his wing, and he gave me session work and helped me get started and introduced me to people that eventually led me to getting a record deal. My sister Durga worked with me with Pink Floyd because I pulled her in on that. So I think it's really a blessing, and it's very important to me that you have a foundation of support, because a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people have a lot of competitive jealousy. I mean, we compete on a certain level because that just goes along with the character you need to break through and stay out there. But I really appreciate the support, and I really appreciate Marcia being as supportive as she is. She's a big fan. It's just really cool because I'm a fan of hers as well.
Yeah, I loved Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and she was my third interview from the film. And I gotta say, I'm guessing you've seen it. What are your thoughts on that film?
Well, I remember going to the set. I was a little girl. Our father brought us there because it was a big deal for us. It was her first movie. She was a teenager herself. But it was wild. I mean, the scene that we saw was the party scene where they had that woman running around that she looked naked, but she wasn't. She had on a body stocking. But it was just like real exciting. And, of course, the story is absolutely insane. But it was kind of fitting for the times.
Yeah.
To me, everything about it, the wildness of their behavior and the insanity of Z-Man, and it was a really unique theatrical experience.
Yeah, I love the film, and I've interviewed her. I've interviewed Dolly Reed and Harrison Page, and they all said wonderful things about your sister. So, but
yeah, Marsha's a great person.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's also quite a humanitarian, and between she and the rest of my family, that's encouraged me to have a bit of a political awareness as well. I really respect her work with UNICEF and for a Children's Sake Foundation, and I'm doing what I can to help build her a little bit of a following to support that now that social media is available to us, which it wasn't when she started back in like the 70s.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that stuff momentarily. But first, we got to talk about some of your music. But first off, and I always ask my guests this, to give me some of their background, but not just background for you, but what was it that made you want to get into the music business?
Well, first and foremost, as I said, I was quite inspired by my older sisters, the fact that they were professional dancers, acting, and being in the entertainment field. I started playing piano when I was 4 because my mother, prior to becoming a physician, was a concert pianist. So between guitar and piano, I eventually started singing. And I was also into dancing and acting, but I figured that singing would be the most stable as far as a consistent career choice. And so I got my mom to help. She bought me voice lessons, and I took dance classes and songwriting classes and music theory and did some courses at UCLA in the music business because she said, I don't care about the performing because she was apprehensive about the drug, sex, rock and roll. She said, you need to learn the business you're going into. And I greatly appreciate that because I ended up meeting Nick Vinay, who was a producer and executive at Capitol Records back in the day when he signed the Beach Boys, and he had worked with Lou Rawls on Tobacco Road and Linda Ronstadt on a different drum and Ricky Nelson, and he was a fantastic teacher. I also met other top quality working professionals in the business, and that gave me a whole nother perception of it. And I think it allowed me to just have that little bit of edge of knowledge, whereas a lot of people are very naive. They're desperate to make it, and they're looking for any break and not necessarily consider, is this the best contract I'm signing? Am I really getting the best deal that I can get out of this situation? So I had that to my advantage, thankfully.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I love talking to people from movies and music that are grounded and down to earth, because people like me, like I'm a volunteer here, so I can't relate to all that flash bulbs and red carpets. It's just not real to me, and this is why I avoid the tabloids as much as possible, because it's like we're being presented something a way somebody wants us to see it, as opposed, because it's like normality is just it's not big for them, It doesn't sell enough newspapers. But I was like, yeah.
I think part of it too, though, is that celebrities represent the glamorous life and the ideal of a capitalist society, having wealth and fame and popularity and whatnot. But some people feel that their regular day-to-day life is very boring or very limited, and so they get excitement looking at whoever it is that they admire. And different cultures handle that different. I've worked all over the world, and I find that the American celebrity culture is much more, it's like it has a shorter attention span.
Yeah.
Whereas I think overseas, in Europe in particular, they have a much more of respect for the accomplishments of talented people, no matter what their ages are. We tend to be very focused on age in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a thick lighter approach to talent, and I think that's very unfortunate.
It is, especially for women, I mean, I've interviewed so many women that are up there in their 50s, and 60s. And to me, they still look lovely to me, but it's so corrupt. Like, I'm sorry, but I'll go back to Jennifer Lawrence, Will she be able to do what Sandra Bullock is doing? Sandra Bullock's managed to keep it up, But or Meryl Streep is a better example, But those are not very common, So
right.
It works better, I think, with males because Lord knows, Grace Kelly, and she was not the age of the leading men in her movies, I'll tell you that.
Well, it's like I said, in America in particular, and Hollywood kind of sets the tone for entertainment around the world. Not to say that there aren't other established, like Bollywood in India, and there's a film industry in Africa, and I know there's a film industry in different parts of Asia, but the American way is kind of the guiding light, so to speak.
Yeah.
And Americans just are really into this thing about aging, and it's particularly with women, but that's kind of in our society. It's deeper than just the entertainment business. However, media absolutely guides the way we perceive a whole lot of things.
Yes, absolutely. But I'll tell you, you have worked with a lot of bands and artists that have aged really well, and I'm not talking from the physical standpoint either. Let's
Yes.
talk. Yeah, let's talk some Pink Floyd. I love the movie Pink Floyd: The Wall. I had Jenny Wright on here a few years back, and she was lovely. And that's a wonderful celebration of Pink Floyd's music and storyline, and I think the band is it's terrific. Do you have a favorite Pink Floyd album?
Dark Side of the Moon, hands down.
Okay, yes, very popular album. Do you have a
Yeah,
favorite?
that was my first exposure to Pink Floyd, and I never get tired of it.
Oh, fantastic. Do you have a favorite Pink Floyd song?
No, I can't pick just one. There's so many Pink Floyd songs that I love. Again, pretty much anything on Dark Side of the Moon,
Hmm.
I'm going to say I love that.
Okay, okay. Because I know that you sing in a Pink Floyd tribute band, don't you? Called Pink Floyd. No, the Aussie Pink.
Yes,
Is there?
I joined the Australian Pink Floyd in 2011. I had heard about Wright passing away, and that David Gilmour came out and said that they would never tour again. So after touring with Rod Stewart, I really wanted to sing Pink Floyd music, and I asked my friends who has the best Pink Floyd tribute, and they all said the Australians. And one thing led to another, and here I am. I've been with them for 7 years.
Oh, fantastic. I know you said you don't have a favorite Pink Floyd song, but do you have a favorite song of theirs you like to perform in terms of your passion or how easy it is to do the song or whatnot?
Well, there's a few. Actually, my sister Durga and I are working on an album, and we've done several Pink Floyd covers, and one of the ones I do is Have a Cigar,
Okay.
which was not one of their most featured songs, but it has a funkiness to it that I always like, but I
Okay.
felt it needed to go just a little further, and so we took it that little extra further. So it's funky, but it's rocking, and I really love that. I also really love a song from the final cut called Fletcher Memorial Home.
Okay.
That was their last album. It's really kind of a Roger solo album, but that song is beautiful. And I sing that when I have the opportunity to perform with other Pink Floyd tribute bands because I don't only work with the Aussies.
Well, you know what? These tribute bands, I think they're a major compliment to the band that inspires it, because it's like, it keeps their music alive, but it also celebrates it in a most passionate way.
It's interesting because I never really knew that much about the tribute world. I remember being on tour with Rod Stewart in Dublin, and I saw a billboard, a big billboard with these beautiful lights. It was like a laser show, and it said Australian Pink Floyd. I thought, wow, really? What's that? So once I got into it and I realized where we're performing, we're playing at some of the same venues that the big name acts play because I see their pictures backstage. And we also do casinos and, indoor and outdoor venues. We played the Greek Theater last year. We played Jones Beach here in New York a couple of years ago. some of the big arenas in the South. And so I realize it's a combination of two things. First and foremost, you have to give a good show. There
Yep.
are thousands of Pink Floyd tribute bands out there in all over the world in all different countries, and not all of them are good. The Australians started 30 years ago in Australia just because they loved Pink Floyd's music, and they took a chance, came to England with very little money, and, struggled, played in bars, and got to the point now where we're playing arenas.
Oh,
And
wow.
they have a real care for making the stuff sound like the albums. The light show is incredible. The laser show is incredible. And the films are unique to the Australian Pink Floyd show, which most tribute bands that I've seen, they use footage that Pink Floyd used. But because the Aussies are so highly visible, Pink Floyd wants us to use our own. So we
Oh,
do.
well, you know what? I see a lot of tribute bands. I know there was an AC/DC tribute band surfacing around here not too long ago. Even the Blues Brothers had one
Hmm.
here, tore through here. And I find it very fascinating. And I don't always know what some of the bands think of them. I know the Blues Brothers one was applauded, I believe, by Dan Aykroyd, if I remember correctly. And so
Hmm.
when you get a thumbs up by the artists themselves, that's a
Right.
plus. That's a major plus.
Well, the Aussies did perform at David Gilmour's 50th birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
He'd heard about them. He went to see them and approached them about doing it. And that was a big highlight for them. So definitely, I agree with you completely on that one.
Yes, absolutely. Wow. Yeah, Pink Floyd. Talk about your experiences touring with them and the actual band. Like, talk about how that happened for you and the experiences meeting them and working
Okay.
with them. Yeah.
Well, I had been making an album with Nile Rodgers for Capitol Records, a solo album for me.
Mm-hmm.
My sister Durga was in New York. She had done some vocals on it. And I had met this video producer thinking that we could do videos for my album. And he contacted me and said that Pink Floyd needed some singers. And would I be interested? Of course, I love Pink Floyd. So I said yes. And I sent the tape of my sister and I singing. And I made a Polaroid of she and another girl who I had just met a couple weeks before that, who was a singer. And they hired us. So they sent us their latest album, which was Momentary Lapse of Reason. This was their first outing without Roger. So that tour was a big gamble for them, a very successful gamble. And they had a song on it called On the Turning Away, which had a choir.
Okay.
And apparently Gilmour wanted some black girls to sing with the band, which they had previously, like in the 70s, they had a duo called the Blackberries that
Okay.
did loads of gigs with them. So we show up in Atlanta. David Gilmour comes out with his guitar. I didn't know what any of them looked like. I figured out he was the lead singer because he was singing and playing with us. And he had us in the show that night.
Oh, wow.
So it was a really incredible experience. We were very excited. And, my sister and I have been performing since we were little girls. So being in front of an audience is nothing for us. It was exciting. It wasn't a huge audience. I think it might have been somewhere around 70,000 people, which for us is small because, when we performed with Pink Floyd in Venice, it was like 350,000 people saw that
Oh, wow.
between the ones that attended and people that saw it on TV. But anyway, they asked me to join the band. They took me to L.A. I performed with them there, but I was expecting my album to come out. So I told them to take Durga. They took Durga. It was a 14-month commitment, which was also why I turned it down. One of the girls quit interimly. My album was not released. Everybody in my department, from the president through the A&R staff, got fired. So I got dropped. And I went on tour with Pink Floyd, and we did Russia, which was incredible. That was in 1989.
Okay.
That I would say is the most incredible concert experience I've ever had,
Oh,
because the
fantastic.
people there were so starved for Western music, and they loved Pink Floyd, and that was amazing. There's a famous photograph of us that you might be able to get for your video. My
Okay.
sister, Rachel Fury, the other singer, and I wearing Russian military hats, and we're holding up a banner that says "Make Love, Not War."
Oh, I saw
And
that. Yeah.
Nick Mason put that in his book about his experiences of being with Pink Floyd. It's called Inside Out. So
Okay.
that was amazing. And then we also got to perform in Venice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a fantastic experience for me to be able to go on tour with them more than once. I didn't get to do the Division Bell because I went on tour with the Rolling Stones after Pink Floyd, and I met my son's father and started a family. So my son was only about one when they went on tour, and I couldn't leave him at home. And it's a good thing that I didn't go. I ended up developing a thyroid condition,
Okay.
and I was quite ill. So it was a good thing I was at home, because if I hadn't been, I would have been pushing myself and ignoring my symptoms, and I could have been, really, really damaged by that. But thankfully, my mother, in her genius, was able to cure me without radiation or keeping me on thyroid medication, and it all worked out.
Fantastic. Yeah, I heard you were part of the Steeler Wheels tour for Rolling Stones.
Yes, I went on their European version of that tour, was called Urban Jungle.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa Fisher, who sang with the Rolling Stones for the next 20-some-odd years, left the tour for a commitment she had with Luther Vandross, she and the other background singer. I had auditioned for the Rolling Stones previously and almost made it, but didn't quite make it. So Mick liked me, called me again. I auditioned again, got the Stones tour, did their first IMAX film,
Okay.
and that was a fantastic experience, but completely different than Pink Floyd. The people in the Pink Floyd organization and the band are very low-key, mostly, I think, because they use photos of Storm's beautiful artwork instead of putting their pictures on the album. So it gave them a lot more anonymity. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the same kind of fan fervor that the Stones had. And I think that because of that, it just made for a different mindset. I mean, Keith is a very down-to-earth, for a rock star,
Okay.
blues man. That's really who he is. I think that Mick evolved into much more of a superstar and an aristocrat. He loves the blues. That is a part of him, but he's also a very wealthy man, and that's also a part of him. So you have, different approaches to success.
Yeah, I hear a various degree. I listen to a lot of I think it's how I listen to a lot of Howard Stern, and
Hmm.
I heard that there's a rift between Keith and Mick. You ever hear anything about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's an on and off thing, because they've been friends since they were 5 years old.
Yeah.
When I was on tour with them, they weren't getting along. But then a couple of years later, I saw them on tour. I brought my son by to meet everybody. They were getting along fine. So it just depends.
Yeah. No,
I'll say this, being a Sagittarius myself, Keith is a Sag, and we are very often tactless in the things that we come out and say, but they're true.
okay.
And some people who have fragile egos can't take that,
Okay.
so I think that adds to the issue with Mick and Keith.
Yeah, I hear you. No, and I gotta ask this. What I asked about Pink Floyd. Do you have a favorite Stone song?
I think Miss You.
Okay.
That's definitely one of my favorites. I have a few Stone songs that are favorites, but Yeah, I really like Miss You. I love Brain Damage Eclipse, Great Gig in the Sky, Us and Them, um, Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Stones album?
Um, I don't have a lot of Stones albums, actually. Exile on Main Street is really good. Somebody bought that for me after having been on tour, and a lot of their best songs are on there. I like some of the stuff they did in the 60s, too, though, like Angie, Wild Horses, um, Paint It Black.
Oh, I love Paint It Black. Yeah.
You know, that era of Stones music I thought was fabulous because I really love the blues. And I came to really appreciate the blues much more because of the Rolling Stones. Keith used to play blues people in the backstage lounge area
Mm-hmm.
everywhere we went. So I got exposed through him. And then also my son's father is a trumpet player, Paul Literal from the Uptown Horns.
Okay.
And so Paul did a lot of blues gigs, and so he exposed me to a lot of blues. And after the tour was over, he and I started a blues, or I should say he started a blues band that he brought me into. And so I had to learn and perform a bunch of old blues songs, and I loved it. It was fabulous.
Yes. You know, it's interesting because the Stones are one of those few bands out there still going, and they've been
Yeah.
going since the 60s. It's like, I mean, that's just phenomenal.
Yes, it is. But the thing of it is, I attribute that to quality material.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially their classic work. There's certain people who their songs, their catalog is so powerful. Stevie Wonder has that. The Beatles have that. Elton John, Earth, Wind, and Fire. You know, Shaka Khan. These are people that don't have to have a current album out for you to enjoy seeing them live because they've got so many great songs.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing to me about a lot of what I hear in the contemporary music that's out there. There'll be those songs that people love because they remember it was a happy time.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as being songs that are going to live on for 20, 30 years, 40 years, like certain standards have that have been written by these bands,
Yep.
I don't see it.
Well, you know what? I can't remember how many years ago it was. Like I said, I live in Fredericton, New Brunswick, and of course we got St. John, we have Moncton here in the province as well. And I remember Moncton, it was the first time they did this. They have the Magnetic Hill outdoor space there that I can't even remember what they called that, but Magnetic Hill, they had an outdoor concert of the Rolling Stones. And I'm going to tell you, I was not there for it, but boy, did I see the footage. And it was just packed solid. I don't know how many people that were there. The only band that came close to it, because they've been doing this like every year, and AC/DC came very, very close to topping them, you know. But the Stones, like people there with the paint of the tongue symbol and all that on them, and it was phenomenal. I remember it so well.
Well, see, the thing that's cool to me about these classic rock bands like Pink Floyd and the Rolling Stones and Rod Stewart, too, is that their fans grow up knowing this music. They expose their children to it. They can bring their children to the shows. And so it keeps it going from generation to generation. And that's something I've observed with the Aussies as well, that people whose children weren't born when Pink Floyd was on tour, they'll bring them to the show because they're like, this is the closest thing you're going to get to it. And then those young people end up coming to support us. I was amazed. We just played in Turkey and Romania earlier this year, and the majority of the people that came to those shows, which were well attended, they were young. They were 20 and 30-year-olds.
Yep.
But again, it goes to the quality of the music. And also, if people are still able to perform well, and I got to give that to the Rolling Stones. They put on a really good show.
Yes. Yeah, they're one of those few bands going since the '60s, and like it doesn't seem to be slowing down. You hear a lot of bands, like unfortunately I mentioned like AC/DC, for example. Brian Johnson had an issue with his hearing, so he had to kind of step away. And even
Mhm.
I even heard the same thing about Huey Lewis recently.
Yes.
An issue with the hearing, and it's sad. But boy,
Mhm.
I love hearing like the Rolling Stones. Are just like I said, before my time. I was born in 1972, and before my time, the Stones were huge.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely. They were big when I was growing up too. I'm a little older than you are, but my sister Durga was really the Rolling Stones fan. I was more into Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin.
mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Um, I've had the pleasure with her singing on their cruises. They do a cruise to the edge where
Mm-hmm.
they feature a lot of different progressive rock bands. And she and I have been working with a new guy named Dave Kersner. He's got a fabulous album called New World. That's his first one. He's got a second one called Static, and we sang on both of those. And that's allowed us to do Cruise to the Edge, where Yes performs. We met Steve Hackett through that, and that led to us singing on his upcoming album. So that's been a wonderful experience. But again, I love that music. I don't like all prog music, but I really like jazz too.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get into the stuff that's more complex, I like that. I
Yes.
like complicated music, as well as really simple stuff. I like folk music. I'm a huge Joni Mitchell fan.
Yes.
I grew up on Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, Carole King, Led Zeppelin, as well as Stevie Wonder, the Motown stuff, Marvin Gaye.
Mm-hmm.
I got turned on to some things at different periods based on where I was living, where I was going to school. But I got a really interesting blend. And also, when I was young, musicals were very popular.
Yes.
So my sister and I used to learn songs from different movies, like Funny Girl, or Lady Sings the Blues. Or, when we were really little, it was like West Side Story and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd perform those songs for our parents and for our families. That was fun. Oh my goodness, we were constantly performing something. So it's not a surprise to anyone that we got into the business.
The Rolling Stones being on tour with them, do you got any stories of performing with them? I'm not looking for anything nasty, but just anything that stands out to you that was intriguing or interesting.
Well, a little bit of what I said already about the fact that Keith was very much dedicated to the blues, because
Mm-hmm.
that's really who he is. And I was very impressed by that, and how easy he was to talk to and how down to earth. Charlie was also very sweet. I was on tour with them their last year with Bill Wyman, and Bill is an absolute gem. He's hysterical. He's really funny, and he really kind of took me under his wing. I used to hang out with him and his assistant a lot, which made me feel at home. Because there was a lot of stress and pressure, especially given that Lisa Fisher is such a magnificent talent.
Mm-hmm.
There were very high expectations of us. So it was nice to have that camaraderie.
Yeah, I listed a few other notable.
Oh, I
Oh,
thought of something that
okay.
was quite unique.
Okay, go for it.
We had our own plane.
Yep.
There were places we went to where they opened the airports at night for us, just us.
Okay.
They drive us onto the tarmac, and we take off in our private plane, because it was a lot nicer than traveling in the morning, which I've done that before, which is a drag. If you've been up really late and you've got to be up for a 7 o'clock call, it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really special. I mean, when we went to Prague, the president put up the tongue in place of, I believe it was a statue of Lenin. And he had the Stones to the palace. And, the thing is, when you work with these kind of bands, you get treated like royalty.
Yeah.
I remember going to a very exclusive incredible dinner when we were in Moscow
Okay.
in a private restaurant. No one was there but us, and there was like a cornucopia of food and caviar and vodka, anything that you can imagine. And it was great to do that, and I really enjoyed it. But outside, there were people in bread lines. So as much as I love the glamour and beauty of what we do, I'm not immune to the reality that that's not everyone's life.
No.
And that I'm enjoying it because someone has afforded me the opportunity. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yep.
And I
hear you.
very much appreciate that, but I'm not in a dream world about it. I know what it's like to struggle and as well as be successful.
Yes. Well, you perform with other notable acts too. I play Chris Isaak on my show quite a bit, and I love songs like "Baby Did a Bad Bad Thing," which you hear in the movie Eyes Wide Shut. Perfect song for that movie. And "Wicked Games" is a really good song. And "Please," talk about working with him.
That was a long time ago. That was one of my early videos, that dancing video.
Mm-hmm.
It was great fun. We worked with Mary Lambert,
Okay.
was the director. She was new and upcoming at that time as well. She was making her name with Madonna and others in that period. But I don't remember talking with Chris that much, really. I was more focused on the direction we were getting from the director. They wanted us to do a kind of 60s sort of a thing, and we had on these long, fitted dresses and big bouffant wigs. Have you seen the video for dancing?
I actually have not, but I know what song you're talking about.
Yeah, you should look it up. It's really kind of funny because, we're in character. But I like that video, and I really am glad that I can say that's on my resume. I mean, there's some records I've worked on that are unknown but very cool music.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit
I used to do a lot of videos.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Billy Idol.
Ooh, that was fun. Although it was a very, 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 very long day. We were working on my album, and that video producer that put me in touch with Pink Floyd hired my sister and Durga and Roberta.
Okay.
The three of us that worked with Pink Floyd to do this. We were like his background singers in the song Hot and City.
Okay.
So we waited around about 13 hours until it was our time to shoot, which was like, why did you have us here all day?
Yeah.
But once we got going, it came out great. That's another hot one you should check out. I'm proud of that one. The sad thing was, at the time, Billy's then girlfriend was pregnant. She was only about 3 months pregnant. And at the end of the video, they strapped her to a cross. And they raised the cross with all these people dancing around. And the censors at MTV freaked out here in the States, and they wouldn't play it. They banned that video.
Okay.
It did get played overseas, and it got, it did I believe it charted a bit because people are familiar with it. But unfortunately, it didn't do what it could have done for him over here.
No.
He was really nice to us. He was easy to get along with, but he was definitely in his heroin phase at that time in his life. I mean, I didn't see it per se, but I heard about it. And my sister Durga ended up recording after Pink Floyd. She started a band called Blue Pearl and had a big hit in Europe called Naked in the Rain, a big dance record, and was doing kind of techno dance stuff. And she ended up writing and recording with Billy Idol. Later after that, they did a song called Mother Dawn together.
Okay. Do you have a favorite Billy Idol song?
Oh, wow. I love Flesh for Fantasy.
Okay.
I think that's my favorite. I like White Wedding, too.
I love White Wedding.
I mean, he had some great hits in his day in the 80s. I really enjoyed his whole thing. I love Steve Stevens and the rawness of it.
Rebel Yell.
Yes, Rebel Yell. That's a favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you also worked with Rod Stewart and went on the Soul Book tour in 2010.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got a little story about Rod Stewart I'm going to share with you. Anytime I think of him, I think about this because I never hear this stuff happening. When I was way, way younger, when you listened to music on the radio and didn't necessarily have access to just playing what you wanted, I heard the song Maggie May on the radio, and I don't know what was going on with the host of the station, but the record skipped, and Maggie May played for something like 10 minutes before
Mm.
somebody cut it off, and it was just
Mm.
funny to hear it. It skipped, and it would play. Um, it wouldn't skip short, but it would play a chunk of it, and it would skip, and it would end up playing the same chunk again.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Well, that was a very, very exciting experience. I had been off the road for 20 years when I got Rod Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my son and I were living in Los Angeles at the time, and he, the way I got that was just fate, in my opinion, just like with Pink Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend whose wife and daughter were going to Disneyland, and I love Disneyland. And the wife needed somebody to stay there with the daughter. We were going to see a premiere of The Princess and the Frog,
Okay.
and she wanted me to go with her in the park, and then the father was going to pick us up because she had an acting job to do. So on the way down to Disneyland, we were talking about my career. She knew I was a singer,
Mm-hmm.
but she worked for Rod Stewart's manager.
Okay.
So she said to me, if anything comes up, I'll let you know. And like within a couple weeks of that Disneyland trip, someone quit. So she said, please send me your stuff. I want you to audition. I auditioned. I got the gig.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite challenging. I had to learn words and choreography to 30 songs, music and melodies and whatnot, to 30 songs in a week.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But the girls that were his background singers were very helpful. They helped make videos for me to look at, and they rehearsed with me. And Rod was kind of, he was tough.
Okay.
He wanted it to be right. But I made it, and we had a lot of fun. We went to Dubai at the beginning of the tour, which was quite an experience. We played in Tel Aviv. We played all over Europe. And it was a really, really, we went to Malta.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a great, great way to get back to touring.
Yeah. Anything, any songs of his that you had favorite of to perform?
Well, my favorite Rod Stewart stuff is the old stuff that he did with the Faces. I love Maggie May, and he used to do that. And I remember getting in trouble once because I was so happy to hear him perform it. I was standing on the side of the stage by the monitor man, and he saw me over there, and he told them, she can't be over there. Get her out of there. Because I was just enjoying it, dancing and stuff, and he didn't want the audience to see that.
Oh. Well,
but I also really liked his version on the Soul Book album of If You Don't Know Me By Now.
oh, okay.
I thought that was really good. But he's had so many fabulous songs. I mean, that was the other thing I enjoyed about touring with him, is that the material, again, quality songs.
Mm-hmm.
Midnight Train to Georgia. And I mean, he did so many fantastic songs.
Yes, he did. Yep.
He really has a great ear for choosing good songs.
Yes, he does.
Whether he writes them or gets them from other songwriters, I respect him a lot for that. He's another one, by the way. When it comes to the fans, he's very, very serious about being good to his fans. I met a woman who was a Facebook fan.
Mm-hmm.
She let me know she'd been a fan of Rod since she was a teenager, and she was, hoping that she'd have a chance to meet him. And of course, I didn't know her, so I wasn't going to commit to anything. But she told me a very sad story. She had lost her son. He was a heroin addict. He overdosed, and she just really wanted this because it would make her life, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
So I told him, and he agreed. He agreed to meet her, and so in between the set where he would go backstage to change his clothes,
Yeah.
he had us bring her backstage. He took pictures with she and her daughter, and that was huge.
Oh, wow. Oh, never heard of this before. This.
Yeah, I thought that was really a lovely thing about Rod. I mean, he can be very thoughtful that way because he appreciates that his fans mean everything. And I learned from that because we do a lot with fans with the Aussies. We do meet and greets for PBS. We have to sign autographs or take pictures with fans. And I never make people feel like they're bothering me because I realize if they don't come to the show, I don't have a job.
Yeah.
And I really developed that attitude from him and also from Lisa Fisher with the Stones. She is one of the kindest, most humble people you'll ever meet and so outrageously talented.
Yeah. I love supporting celebrities that are good to their fans. I used to read this magazine. Now we don't get it here anymore, but it was called Autograph Collector. And it would talk about, I know it was at the end of the year, they'd always have the top 10 best and worst signers. And it always amazed me at how some of the really big celebrities that are very, very approachable, like I hear nice things about, John Travolta and Tom Cruise and that them being very approachable. And then there are ones on the worst signers that I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't, like, it really affects whether I want to support their stuff or not,
Well, I think you have to keep in mind that celebrities are people and everybody has their good days and their bad days. And sometimes I think people can be very insensitive to the fact that you're interrupting another human being, unless it's a situation where you're like a meet and greet where they're expected to sign autographs or take pictures with their fans. But if you see somebody out in the street or you see them in a restaurant or whatever, and loads of people are making it impossible for that person to enjoy themselves, some of them will flip out on you.
Actually, what I'm talking about is not at restaurants and whatnot, but at premieres and stuff like that. I won't name this individual's name, but there's a certain comic out there that practically goes out of his way to make fun of his fans at these premieres. And this is a person that's had some big movies, and I'm like, who do you think you are? Yeah.
I find in my observation of certain people that were huge that either disappeared or they lost it because they went too far with that the public and the media will turn on you.
Mm-hmm. One of the worst was in the last few years. I know a lot of people that are into janitorial, that's what they do for a living, clean up and whatnot. And I loathe the story about Justin Bieber urinating in this guy's mop bucket. And yeah, and it's like, and he's got these young people that defend him. I'm like, you know what? That's somebody's job, something that Justin Bieber won't do.
Right.
Yep.
Well, again, like I said, you get people, especially if they become famous very young and they don't go through a struggle.
No.
They don't appreciate what it is to not have because they are surrounded by people that are constantly indulging them and they don't mature.
Yeah.
And that happens to lots of artists, especially the people that start very young.
Yes.
So, again, it comes down to home training. What kind of family did you grow up in? What kind of people were around you as you were making your way to success? And did they teach you how to act? And like I said, for me, I was very influenced by people that I saw, that I worked with or auditioned for or, came into contact with through the business. And I watched the others that weren't so nice. And I had to push myself because especially when I was younger, I could be very outgoing, but also very shy. And a lot of people took that for me being a snob, and I really wasn't. I was just shy, and I'm not really funny, and so I just kind of listen and observe people to figure out the best way to fit in.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about the 1988 Grammys, where you worked with Lou Reed, Grace Jones, and of course Debbie Harry, of course, a Blondie.
Yeah, actually, the concert that I worked with them at was separate. I worked with Lou twice.
Okay.
The first one was a benefit, a health benefit for those mobile medical units in New York.
Okay.
I think it's called Health First, the organization. It was something that Paul Simon put together, and I was singing with a whole bunch of other people with Chic and Nile Rodgers. And we had been rehearsing, and Lou Reed was to rehearse after us, and Debbie and Grace were not going to be there. So somebody in Lou's crew asked me if I could get another girl so we could stand in for them just so they could do a run-through. So I grabbed Roberta, my friend from the Pink Floyd stuff, and I said to her, let's work this. So we started doing little hand gestures and really making it look good. So they asked us to join Grace and Debbie, and we ended up performing at Madison Square Garden with them. And then that same year, Lou got involved. He was asked by the Grammy producers to join a segment on New York artists. So they had a whole bunch of people, starting with Cab Calloway, Tito Puente, and Celia Cruz, Run DMC, Whitney Houston, and Lou Reed was part of that lineup. So we got to perform that. That was a fabulous, fabulous night.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, both of those were. I mean, the charity concert was great because there was so many. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, it's okay.
There were
Go
so
ahead.
many great artists there that performed and contributed, and that was a fun hangout.
Yes.
I got to meet James Taylor that night.
Okay.
Shaka was there. I'm friends with her. Anyway, but it was just great. It was really, really fun. I'd never performed at Madison Square Garden before that.
That must have been quite a thing especially like that's just I've never been there, but I mean, just this huge place. That is a sign you made it, That's Yep, Madison.
Well, the thing that I loved about that experience was Grace and Debbie. Grace, they were both very, very sweet, but Grace Jones recorded a song my sister Dana wrote called Pull Up to the Bumper. And so she's kind of like family. She and Marcia used to model together, and she was kind enough to bring me a dress so we could have the same dress. Mine was like a goldish yellow, and hers was white. She didn't have to do that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
People always talk about her as being kind of wild and being a diva, and she is a diva, but she's really sweet too. And my experience of her has always been that she's been kind and thoughtful. And I saw her when she was promoting her book. And we hadn't seen each other since that night with Lou Reed. And that was, oh, my God, 1988. But I brought photos of us from that night, and she hugged me. She was very sweet. So I really enjoyed that experience.
What was Debbie Harry like?
She was really, really nice, down to earth, just easy to talk to, just normal. I mean, my experience of a lot of celebrities that I've met, especially in those circumstances where you are a part of their, it's like you're like a peer. I remember being backstage at the Grammys, and Roberta Flack was there, and Billy, oh my goodness, Billy the comedian, I can see his face.
Oh, Billy Crystal?
Yeah, Billy Crystal was the host, and I met him, and I mean, they were just really nice. They were just like normal people. I met Jimmy Jam that night as well.
You've also been involved with film as well. I noticed that you had worked with Spike Lee on Summer of Sam, which I saw in the theaters back in 1999. Of course, based on the true story of the killings, and what a creepy atmosphere in that movie. That's one thing I think Spike Lee really did well with that. Talk about that experience.
I was only in a crowd scene when there was like a riot that
Mm-hmm.
broke out.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get to be involved in the production of that a lot. I didn't pursue a lot of extra work. I got a little bit of it because I met somebody here who hired me to do a few things, and he hired me for that, and also The Best Man. And those were good experiences, but unfortunately, when I did The Best Man, I was in a scene where I was next to one of the principals. It was at the wedding in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a crying scene because she had had an argument with one of the lead guys, and they needed to shoot again the second day, close-ups. Nobody told me I wasn't in SAG, and I could have gotten my union card paid for by the production. But back then, I didn't have a cell phone, and I was out on a field trip with my son's class.
Okay.
We had gone to, it was like a ferry to Staten Island.
Okay.
So I get home, and I get all these messages, "We need you, where are you?" It was too late.
Oh, that's too bad. But I know through talking to Marcia McBroom, you guys are involved in a lot of charities. We got to talk about the charity work for our own or for our children's sake foundation. Talk about that.
Well, I have known about the work Marcia's been doing to bring about certain political awareness and fairness in the world for, years and years and years. And in the more recent years, since I've been able to get a little bit more internet savvy, I've tried to encourage her to come more into the 21st century,
Yeah.
get her websites done. I mean, I did the websites that she's got now, but I don't have the design capabilities to upgrade them the way they need to be done. So I figured the next best thing I could do is make people aware of her on Facebook, because I'm on Facebook a lot. So she's got a page on there for our Children's Sake Foundation. We've got a link so people can make donations, because the work that she does on a monthly basis of shipping clothing and books and supplies to people in Dakota, she works with a Native American community there. She works with people in Haiti. It's an organization there. She has a chapter of her own foundation in Malawi in Africa. And she's constantly doing all this work herself.
Okay.
She rarely does fundraisers and whatnot, and I thought, well, people should contribute. So I'm hoping that we can build some momentum for her and make people aware of what she's done, what she's doing, because she's still doing it.
And she has 1,000 boxes of hope.
Yes. Yeah, I designed that little logo for her. It's wonderful. I mean, they're building homes. She sent me pictures of a home they're building for a girl who her parents had died, and so that she could avoid having to marry to support herself, they are providing schooling for her and other students and a house.
Fantastic.
So she can have independence. I mean, Marcia's doing incredible stuff by herself.
And then we have Who Cares, We Care.
Yes, that's something that I started back in 2006. Marcia had been approached by a friend of hers who's since retired from the UN to help bring about awareness of Darfur, because back then people didn't know what was going on. So I created a website for that, which, again, I haven't been able to update because the design program I was using doesn't work anymore. It's obsolete. But the point was to bring people aware of what's happening there, which eventually George, where's my brain today? George Clooney and Don Cheadle made films and did things to really make the public far more aware. And also, that's when I found out about who Nancy Pelosi was, because she was also very much crusading to make people aware of what was happening. So that's what that's about. And eventually I will get back to actually making that into a proper nonprofit and put more focus on it.
Okay. And of course, we talked a little bit about your sister. I don't want to get her name wrong. Is it
Durga?
Durga, okay. Yeah, Flashdance is celebrating its 35th anniversary this year, and she was involved in that.
Yeah, she played Heels in that. That was her first film. And she's done several other films and commercials, but she found that the film industry, like I suspected, was very difficult because they were pigeonholing her. She's very tall. She's 5'10". She's dark-skinned. And so it limited her to roles as prostitutes and prison inmates. And, that's not what she was trained to do. She's really quite good in comedy. She's a good dramatic actress. But she got into the music thing with me, and that took off. She worked with Pink Floyd consistently from 1987 through their last album in 2014, which was The Endless River. So she went into her music thing, and that took off.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? She's welcome to come on here if she's open to it.
I'm sure she would be. I'll definitely put you in touch.
Yeah, that would be great. Anything coming up with you? I know that Marcia mentioned that you're going to be going away on what is it, the 6th?
On the 5th of August.
Oh,
yes,
the 5th.
I have 2 shows with Durga in Italy.
Okay.
One is called Jazz by the Pool.
Okay.
The information is on jazzbythepool.it. They are doing a festival series every summer of jazz and blues. So we put together a set of some of our favorite songs that we feel will suit the genre. That's going to be fabulous. The place is so beautiful. It's a hotel and spa.
Okay.
Called Terme Historique. I can't remember the rest of it. But anyhow, it's a beautiful, beautiful location. And I'm looking forward to that. Then after that, we have a gig the following day in Sicily. So I'll be in Palermo with her. Come home for a few weeks and go to the West Coast to start up with the Australian Pink Floyd North American tour. We'll tour the U.S. and Canada.
Okay.
And I'll take a couple weeks off in October, and then we do the U.K. until mid-December, and that's my schedule for the year.
Oh, wow. You're a busy person.
I tour a good 6 to 8 months out of the year. I worked with Durga on Cruise to the Edge in February, and we went to Belize and Costa Maya, which was just stunning. Actually, I'm sorry, that was last year. Where did we go this year?
Well, here's a question for you.
No, that was this year. Then
okay.
I went to Brazil. That was fantastic. I was there earlier this year. Then I did the European tour with the Aussies, Germany, France, so Netherlands. I just travel a lot.
Well, that brings me to my next question. What is your favorite place you've ever gone to?
I have to say Italy.
Italy, okay.
I love Italy. Italy has great food. The weather is beautiful. The countryside is beautiful. The people are very loving. I also really love Brazil.
Brazil, okay.
Because I made friends with a wonderful family. They have a family band called Uma Guma, the Brazilian Pink Floyd, and they've taken me all over Brazil. It's so beautiful. We were in a place called Natal, which is on the beach. I've been to Rio. They've taken me to such beautiful, beautiful places. It's a gorgeous country. So I really like it there as well.
Oh, wow. And now that's for places. Now, in terms of locations, like, I don't know, Madison Square Gardens might be your pick here, but is there any particular place, like in terms of these big stadiums or whatnot, that you like best?
I absolutely loved Jones Beach.
Okay.
That is a beautiful place because it's right by the water. It's an outdoor venue, and I really, really enjoyed that. And also because it's in New York. I mean, playing there in the Greek Theater were big highlights for me because they're in the United States.
Okay.
I really like the O2, which is a huge place over in London. The Oberhausen, there's an arena there that I really like. I mean, there's a lot of great places to play. I love playing in a big place. The Bell Center in Montreal is a big favorite.
We got to get you down here. Have you ever been down to New Brunswick, Canada, where I'm from?
I don't think so. I've been to a lot of different cities in Canada, but I don't recall. I've been to Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to in Ottawa.
Toronto.
Like I told you, Rimouski, which is a little tiny place.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't say.
Yeah, I'm trying to introduce more people to New Brunswick because nobody seems to hear about us.
No, I've heard of it. I just don't know if we've played there or not. It's possible that we have because Pink Floyd is very popular in Canada.
Oh yeah, they've got their fans here too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I remember years and years ago I attended a midnight screening of Pink Floyd The Wall, and that was my introductory to that, and I loved that film. And what did you think of that film? Did you like it?
I haven't seen it recently. When I saw it was a long time ago, and I don't remember totally connecting to what it was about. I understand it much better now that I've worked with the Aussies and had a chance to really perform and learn a lot of the songs from The Wall.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very, very intense story.
It is.
And the message of it is very dark,
Mm-hmm.
but meaningful.
Yep. No, I especially love the animated images they got all through it as well. It's just how everything shifts and turns shapes and stuff. Yeah, some great stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, you know what? I have had a blast talking to you about your career and your work with these artists. I got one last question though. Is there any buddy that you would like to work with or wish you could have worked with?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I was at the Rolling Stones concert, the last time I saw them, I was coming up through the VIP elevator, and Donald Fagen was on the elevator with me.
Okay.
With my sister and his date for the evening. I flipped out. I absolutely love Steely Dan.
Okay.
So if I ever had the opportunity to work with him, I would love that. I mean, I remember giving him my card at the time. None of my information on there is current now, but I know a couple of people that do work with Fagen and that worked with Steely Dan, but they tend to stick to the same people. You know, when you find people that work well with you, you don't change.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would absolutely love to work with him, and I would have loved to have sung with Joni Mitchell.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. She wasn't really known for having background singers, though, but and also Annie Lennox.
Oh, Annie Lennox, yes, the Eurythmics.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, my sister Durga and I were in the "Would I Lie to You" video.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get to meet her. I don't know. Durga may have met her. But I admire her a lot. I think she's great.
Oh, yes. I grew up with the Eurythmics, you know, like born in the early 70s. You know, I grew up, I remember the 80s so well. And I remember Here Comes the Rain Again and Who's That Girl? And I remember the Eurythmics quite well.
Yeah, their stuff was incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful voice on Annie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, sir, we want you to plug your webpage one more time before we close up. And plug it, even Marcia's, you know. Plug all these charities so that people can hear them.
First of all, not only do I do my singing, I also make custom handmade jewelry.
Okay.
So I have a website for that.
Okay.
It's jewelrybylorelei.com. And Lorelei is spelled Lorelei. Lorelei is a mythical mermaid that sat on the rocks of the Rhine River and enticed the sailors with her beautiful voice.
Absolutely.
So I have a mermaid as my logo on my jewelry website. Then I'm also on Facebook, Lorelei McBroom, and Lorelei J. McBroom, McBroom Media, the McBroom Sisters, lots of McBroom on Facebook. Marsha's on Facebook, Marsha McBroom Small.
Mm-hmm.
We also created a page for her foundation, for our Children's Sake Foundation. So there's a lot. Durga's on Facebook, Durga McBroom. Dana is on Facebook, Dana McBroom Mano. So we're there.
You mind if I add you on Facebook?
Not at all.
I'll do that. I'm on there quite a bit. I connect with a lot of my guests through Facebook. Social media has become very good for that. So,
yeah, if you send me a message, that'll make it easier for me to find you. I've got a good 1,000+ people waiting, and I've got like 3 spaces.
Three
So
spaces. You're up there,
yeah,
huh?
I tend to leave 3 spaces, 2 or 3 spaces for people like you, who it's somebody that I know personally
Okay.
that I want to accept. Because there are lots of fans on there that I don't know personally, or, I may have seen them at a show I did, but I don't have the same kind of personal connection. So I have to leave some space for that.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. Well, I'll send you a message, and yeah, that way, when this does go up, and again, I need just give you patience on that, but when it does go up, I can just link it right to you. Of course, I could link it to you even if you did run out of space, you could still I could put it and message it to you, so it would still work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what, Lorelei?
Well, thank you.
Oh, it's been a blessing and an honor. This is wonderful that I got to interview 2 of the McBroom sisters. And like I said, I'm open if Durga wants to come on here. I'm open for that as well, and I'll give you guys a good promotion on here and talk about your stuff.
Great.
Yeah. Before you
'Cause
go,
we are working on an album.
Yes.
We're hoping to finish it this year. It's got songs that we've written ourselves. It's got songs that are Pink Floyd favorites of ours,
okay.
done by us doing the lead, which makes it a little bit different. So that's going on, and Durga has lots of shows that she's doing as well. She's based in Italy, but she has a place in Los Angeles that she can come back when she needs to.
Okay. All right.
And we're just out there doing our thing, spreading the McBroom name around the planet.
Well, before you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
Hello, this is Lorelei McBroom. I'm talking with you and Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise from New Brunswick, Canada. Join us and enjoy our show. Have a great day.